when you put in that. So with the column, so the direction we slip is always influenced by the wind direction. And it's always gonna be north corner and along engine. So ideally what happens. So if this is.
Olivia,
This is the runway right here.
Morning.
good morning.
This. Run, and let's say the wind is coming from this direction. Right? Yeah. So we do ailerons into the wind, pull right rudder. With our ailerons on the ground, it should kind of help cancel out this air that's coming from this direction.
All right, I saw Jessica.
Because basically.
Olivia is virtual.
Ailerons are pointing the wind, which those two things together.
Echo Bravo's here.
To the, so.
Julia Papa's here.
In common positions.
That's kind of cool, Julia Papa.
Right rudder.
Yeah.
And if you don't put enough.
Let's see.
ailer on it, that rudder.
Kilo Oscar.
Start.
Cool.
Right, so if you see yourself drifting. over-
Alpha Kilo.
Putting in right rudder.
Tonight should be here.
Amazing, thank you. You just need a little bit. more-
Yeah, exactly. Where is he? I texted him last night. I said, "Where are you?" He said,
Aaron's excited by a little bit more.
He said, "Oh, you missed me." Nice. And then every once in a while, I say, "Who is this?"
Where'd you come from?
He laughs. I think.
I thought this was a TK. And remember.
What is it?
Triangle 70.
TKO.
TKO.
Nice.
Cause.
We're starting
So
class
you
here,
typically say-
Michael.
Sorry,
Sorry,
we'll get out of here.
Thank you.
The rabbit hole for your homework is crazy,
I know.
but I thought you got it.
You got it though.
Yeah.
Good. Where's your presentation partner?
Oh, that's convenient.
During this flight? Or during this class? Oh, gotcha. That's convenient. Yeah, I know it can be a rabbit hole, but I'm sure you figured it out.
You're right, it was satisfying.
Yeah, was it?
It's the document right here.
Good,
A lot.
good. Here's my notes.
You throw in legal jargon in that, seeds.
Yeah, so what did you find out?
So there's two different advisory circulars to talk about the TSO that. They say it's certified as a standalone GPS unit for,
Okay. So what makes our avionics IFR certified? TSO.
Even one, what do you?
Okay,
TSO C-146C.
exactly. Yeah, good. Did you find that out yourself or did you ask somebody?
No.
Good job. Excellent job. Yeah,
I prepared as much as I could.
good job. Yeah, that's excellent.
So advisory circular 90-100 alpha talks about the certification of the instruments as well as advisory circular 20-138 delta.
Yes,
Um,
good.
The G3X GPS is certified for VFR flight only,
Yep,
but if we couple with the 650,
yes. Very good. Yeah, you can actually go in your G3X and choose, if you go on the bottom flight plan, you can choose the GPS source. So you can do internal or external.
okay.
I don't know if you've noticed that. You can actually type a flight plan in the G3X.
Yeah, I saw him fight and that was like it tells you
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah, you can do all of that.
That's nuts.
But like Justin said, it's only for like VFR awareness.
Yeah.
But you can change the source to internal or external. The external would be the GTN 650. Yeah, good.
And
Okay.
there's requirement is to be 95% accurate within. There's 95% of the flight, total flight of has to be within 1 nautical mile laterally of accuracy.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean?
So sorry, I'm experiencing some acute fatigue today. So
No, I understand. I get it.
I'm struggling with it. So it has to be accurate within 1 nautical mile of our actual position for 95% of our total.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, and what does, so is that, are we GPS or WAS certified based on WAS? Yeah, what's another type of WAS TSO that exists?
145, so C1.
Yes, yeah, good. What about GPS? What are the TSOs for GPS?
Uh,
I'm really impressed. Great job, folks.
C129.
Good.
161, 162.
I don't know about that one. That could be true, but
C145.
I mean, these three.
129, 196, right?
EPS slash these three, 1, 2, 3.
129, 196.
Oh, just that. No, it's not. These with the GPS slash.
Yeah, this is just,
Oh,
this is
okay.
GPS GBAS. That's a different type of system. Yeah, but notice that what you're qualified to do is based on some kind of TSO.
I don't see 196.
It's there. 1117. So yeah, the 2138. Let's look at the aim together. So let's kind of break all this down into a coherent sentence.
Aaron, can you turn on the TV?
TV. I can do that.
I can have to start on him.
I did start the Zoom. Thank you very much for reminding me. I think Jessica, she actually was not going to be here today.
Or he's letting me down.
I know. Well, we can have him explain all of it when he comes in. How's that sound? Okay. Right away, he's like, okay.
We basically covered all of it.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
I was gonna have him present first because kind of it sets the groundwork for me. GPS as this specific TSO.
Mhm. Yeah, so right here you have 1117 GPS. It goes through the general system overview, which we discussed yesterday, right? The constellation of satellites, the different components, the ground-based. And then it goes into these different TSOs right here. For GPS only equipment, TSO Charlie 129 or 196. So that's considered for GPS. Then it goes into different RAIM here. Talks about database currency. You can load VFR waypoints in to the GPS as well. Do you all know how to do that? Yeah, it's like VP, visual point, and then some 3-letter identifier that's unique for that particular spot. Now for GPS only, so TSO means technical standing order. What does that mean, technical standing order? That just means that the FAA says,
TSO is a minimum performance standard defined by the FAA.
Yeah.
To evaluate an article can be material, part, component, process, or appliance.
this microwave is TSO.
Each TSO covers a certain type of article. When authorized to manufacture an article to a TSO standard, this is referred to as a TSO authorization. Seeking a TSO authorization is both a design and production approval.
Let's summarize that into a sentence. What does that mean?
That's the FAA.
So if you want to put a mini fridge in our own plane, you should look for the TSO.
Should get the TSO for that.
The FAA is just evaluated it and certified that it's can do what it's claiming.
Exactly. Yeah. Good. Yep. This is the FAA says that, okay, well, if you have a receiver or user segment that meets the requirements of a technical standing order, Charlie 129, and the installation was completed in compliance or in accordance with this advisory circular, you may use it for what it's claimed to do. Hey,
I did find it.
you did. I didn't notice you walking out, I would have stopped and said, Austin, we don't know anything, can you tell us? Good, I'm happy you all took this assignment seriously, I think it's kind of fun. Okay, so this again is GPS. I want to point out a few other things in here as well, because we're going to compare the GPS and WAS. And you discussed WAS as well, I assume, right? Right after GPS, yeah, it's usually the flow. Even look at this, GPS overlay approaches. What is a GPS overlay approach? You might not know what that is yet. No. Who's flown localizer Delta? Or at least tracked it in? No, not yet. Okay, all right. Then I will not talk about that right now. That's okay. Have you done flight planning much yet? Okay. Yeah, no, here. All right, then I'm not going to talk about that right now. Have you talked about GPS CDI sensitivities? You should have talked about that, right? Okay. Yeah, so what does that mean, GPS CDI sensitivities? Oh, great. I'm happy to see this.
If I remember correctly, it's like covering the errors, isn't it?
Errors meaning what?
Oh, it's like, different range, like something there, it's white.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So before we dive into that, just a moment here of when we're talking about the CDI, we're talking about the HSI, you have some kind of course, right? And we're talking about the CDI here, right? You have some kind of designated course and you want to know how off course you are. So if you have a VOR and you see that your CDI is over here, how far off course are you?
Isn't that full deflection?
Okay, so let's say it's half deflection. Let me put some.
No, 2 miles.
Okay, so you're saying this CDI is telling you that it's a distance.
Of course.
Okay, now let's think about this. You're gonna see my point here in a moment.
Depends.
It depends.
Oh,
How far away from the VOR.
right.
Okay, okay, so let's summarize it again. So what is this distance then? It's not, or this,
It's a percentage.
okay,
Angle deflection.
okay, yeah, it's degrees.
Right.
This is degrees. Yeah, this is 5 degrees. This is what we're talking about with CDI sensitivity. Now let's talk about GPS. Color coordinate this here. When you have a half deflection with GPS, hopefully these dots make sense. What is your CDI sensitivity here? And just like Justin said, it depends on your phase of flight. Because if you are more than 30 nautical miles from your approach or departure airport, what is this? What is a full scale deflection?
5 miles,
No,
3 miles.
no,
10.
no.
4.
It's 2, right? But that's the point that I'm making here, is this is actually distance for GPS. from your designated course. And for VOR, it's degrees. Depending on how far away you are from the VOR, you can calculate what the distance is, and you'll do this in your written. You'll be a pro at this. All right, typically the ratio is when you're 60 nautical miles away and you have 1 degree, you're 1 mile away. As you get closer, as we know, the spokes on the wheel, right, get a little closer, so you can actually use that ratio and figure out exactly how far away you are. Are you gonna do this in the plane? No. Okay, you're not gonna do this. So that being said, I don't know if you've seen this. Have you seen this drawing here before? This is your departure airport.
Oh, yeah, that's in flight when you look over like the whole flight.
You're going to Torrance, let's say. This is your en route, okay? You could split up the GPS sensitivities. So when you have a full scale deflection based on your route of flight, let's think about this for a moment. When you're en route, do you want a full scale deflection to be more or less of a distance than when you're doing an approach getting 200 feet above the ground?
And route you want less.
You want more distance, yeah, because when you get here, you want less distance. That's where this concept kind of comes from. Okay, you have a designated course, and as you get closer, so let's see. Hopefully this helps. So let's say you're right here. Do you see what I'm doing here? This is your designated course, and this is the distance here. And then as you get over here, then en route will be even more, just to be dramatic. All right. So we can also show this in a chart format. Get a little more room here. Are we good with this? Can I erase this? You understand the fundamental difference here, big picture? Now we're going into a little more detail. I assume you've already seen this chart, but we're gonna do it again. Distance from departure or arrival airport. Are you all good with that? DEP is departure, AR is just gonna be arrival for shorthand. This is the more simple, okay, more than 30 nautical miles. What type of enunciation, another important term to think about when you're talking about GPS, especially WASP, are you expected to have when you're more than 30 nautical miles? Do you know what I'm talking about when I say the word enunciation? No. Okay. You haven't done an IFR flight yet, right? Training flight, no. Who has? You have, yeah, of course. So when you start the aircraft and the GTN 650 turns on, you have the databases. And then you acknowledge the databases, make sure they're current, and then you click the next page. What's the next page show you?
Shows you your CD9 check.
Exactly. Yeah, the instrument panel self-test. And one of the lines in that says enunciation on. Right? What does it say when you look at the HSI? We're talking about what the HSI says for which phase of flight you're in. Okay, that's what this is talking about. I really want to show this photo, but I'm not able to connect to this AirPlay. Bear with me here. Here we go, this should work. Here we go. So this is the second screen that you see right here. Instrument panel self-test. The purpose of this is to build confidence in your flight instruments. Okay, this is part of the instrument cockpit check or the instrument flight deck check that we do as pilots for instrument flight. So you have a few different types of CDIs, right? You have your lateral CDI. So you can see that here, half left over here on the HSI. You have half left here on this part above. You also have it here. Make sure you're checking your primary and backup. All right, but what I want to get to is the enunciation on. I know this photo is not great, but you can see it's purple. It says GPS, and can you see what that says? Yeah, LPV. So that's something we'll talk about when we discuss GPS approaches, because depending on what the enunciation says, it will determine your line of minima for a GPS approach. It could be the difference between going 200 feet above the ground or 1,000 feet above the ground, just by looking at that. And that enunciation is what communicates to us as pilots which phase of flight our receiver says that we're in. So that's really important, right? Because if we go lower to the ground and we're not authorized to go lower to the ground because we don't have that enunciation, we have now compromised the safety of flight. So that's a really important concept when you're talking about GPS. Okay, yeah.
What's the actual definition of pronunciation?
The actual definition.
Yeah, in terms of aviation.
I don't know what the actual definition is, but I know that enunciation is just simply what shows to us as pilots as the phase of flight or line of minima that we're in. Yeah. So let's continue this chart here and see if this helps make sense. So when we're more than 3 nautical miles away, we know that it's still going to be accurate. We can still rely on the GPS, but our CDI sensitivity is going to be a little bit greater. In this case, it's going to be 2 nautical miles with a full scale deflection. Okay. I put this in the wrong one. It's over here. This is 2 nautical miles. And the enunciation, when we're more than 30 nautical miles away, is going to be en route. This happens every time you fly with GPS, and you may not even notice it. Okay, like when you've done your long cross countries and such, that's what it says. When you're less than 30 nautical miles, and you're from your departure or arrival airport, you're going to have terminal. And what does the word terminal mean, generally speaking? We're near some kind of airport, right? Terminal is just an airport. So we're near an airport. And it makes sense. We're less than 30 nautical miles away. Okay. And as that happens, the sensitivity is going to be a little bit more in our favor, a little bit less. Okay. So that's going to be 1 nautical mile. Now, being off route 1 nautical mile kind of seems like we're pretty off course, but they give us a buffer, right? Are you all good so far with this? Yeah, okay. Now, do you know what FAF means?
Frontal approach fix.
Good, everyone comfortable with that term? Are you good with that? Yeah, okay. You know, an approach, just a brief recap here. An approach can kind of be broken down into 3 kind of different portions of it, 3 segments maybe. You have the approach starts, typically at the initial approach fix, right? Then you have an intermediate fix, then you have a final approach fix. Okay, by the time you get to the final approach fix, you're typically a bit lower than your initial. And once you get your final approach fix, you should have already completed all of your checklists, all of your descent checklists, your before landing checklist. You should make sure that you're stable. And you want to make sure, like I just said, what enunciation do we have? Because that will determine how low we can go for the approach. The approach may have the capability of bringing us 1,000 feet above the ground or 200 feet above the ground. But if we don't have the proper signals and the system is not working properly, we may have a higher line of minima. So this is, I know I've said it like 5 times, but that's how important I think this topic is. So because of that, when we're 2 nautical miles from the final approach fix, another reason why this is really important for an approach, the CDI sensitivity is going to become even more sensitive. Okay, how much more?
I'm assuming half a mile.
Even less.
0.3.
Exactly. Good. Very good. 0.3 nautical miles. And the enunciation is, I'm gonna write APR here for approach, but it could be any of the line of minima here. It could be LPV, it could be LNAV, it could be LP. Just write these down. You may not know what they are yet, but it'll come to you. It could be LNAV, LP, it could be LNAV, VNAV. Okay. This will definitely be a check write question. Absolutely. Okay. 100% this will be a check write question. And the question may be phrased, tell me about the GPS CDI sensitivities. It could be phrased as simply as that. It could be phrased, so tell me, in terms of your route in different phases of flight, what is the tolerance of being within that particular course on different phases of flight? It could be, usually it's just CDI sensitivities. You just want to get the topic of GPS over with, bless you, and move on. Okay. Any questions on this? Okay, cool.
All of these are full scale deflections, right?
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. Now, the thing with the full scale deflection is if you have a full scale deflection, you could be just on the edge of being off course, or you could be really off course, right? So just keep that in mind. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. Great question. Yep. So that's what these are here. Yeah. So just to go a little more detail here. So this is 2 nautical miles, right? On either end. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
1 nautical mile. And then 0.3 nautical mile. I should probably label these. So this is en route. Term. And then approach. You can take this a step further if you're a visual person. Let me do a different color here. I just don't want it to look messy. I just want it to be like, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So this could be 30 nautical miles. So if you're within that, you'll have term. If you're outside that, you'll have en route. Then you could draw another one over here. You understand what I'm doing here?
Yeah.
then you could do another term here as well.
And instead of approach, it'd be departure.
Yeah, but there's not a specific enunciation for departure. Yeah, it just all falls into the terminal. Okay. That's it. All right. GPS CDI sensitivities.
We read through the slide once. There was a couple.
Good. Yeah, this is definitely a check right question. I think this is important. I know you haven't done approaches yet, but I am just going to show you an example of what I mean. Like, okay, Aaron, we understand it sounds like you're saying the enunciations are important because you said it like 15 times, but we don't really know what you mean. Can you give us a specific example? Sure, I can do that for you.
Thanks.
Thanks. So this right here, your eyes may not be used to looking at an approach plate yet. But basically you have your line of minima down here at the bottom of the plate. Okay, if you're using FAA. I've been using Jefferson, but SkyVector doesn't offer Jefferson, so you're just gonna have to look at this. Okay. And your line of minima are right here. The bigger bold number is your true altitude or MSL, assuming that you've set the altimeter to the local barometric pressure, right? We're gonna make that assumption today. If you have the LPV enunciation, which means that you have approved lateral guidance, okay, using GPS and vertical guidance, you can go down to 673 feet. Right, that doesn't really mean anything if you don't know the airport elevation, right? That is 250 feet above the ground. Pretty low if you think about it, right? That's like a quarter of the traffic pattern, put in perspective. Okay, that's pretty low. Now, if the enunciation is not LPV and maybe you have LNAV, you're going up to 840, 417 feet. Okay, almost double. Still, that's pretty low. Don't get me wrong. That's still very low. Okay, but not as low as this. Yeah, okay. So when you get ready for that, clearly you don't want to go lower than you really should. Okay. Yeah, stress that one. Tend to just repeat myself, and hopefully out of the 15 times, somebody hears it once. Right?
What is that?
I was a little, you shouldn't have me repeat myself. Sorry, what?
There's the rule for learning it scarcity 3 times before you said it.
Something like that. Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I was talking to a friend of mine. He works for this lumber company and he travels from San Diego to San Francisco and like San Jose. And he does their training, and he's in his 50s. He's been doing this for a while, and he had over 200 employees. And he said, because when I first started teaching class here, I said, I feel like I'm just repeating myself, and sometimes people just don't get it. And he said, welcome to teaching. He said, yeah, no, it's nothing. I mean, when you sit here for 2 hours every day for, 5 weeks or 10 weeks, there are things you're going to miss. You come into class, maybe you're like acutely fatigued, or maybe you had a tough conversation with a friend or a family member, and maybe you tune out 15 minutes out of that 2 hours, and maybe you miss one thing that somebody said. And now, I mean, imagine if you just walked in halfway through this, you'd be like, I don't know what he's talking about. So now you just missed out on 30 minutes of information because you weren't here from the beginning. Or maybe you just tuned out for 3 minutes and you come in and be like, oh man, I think I get it. But now I'm a little lost. So anyway, the point is repeating yourself is okay. That's what I tell myself. Is that okay? Do you support that? Awesome. This is where you say, what? What do you say? All right. Are we having fun yet? As much fun as we can with GPS.
Settings are.
Okay. That wasn't even talking about WAS yet, by the way. That was just GPS. What is the difference between direct and activate leg?
One is your current position while the other one is gateway. That's a part of the plan of flight.
Okay, good. Everybody got that? Yeah, that concept is really important because they're very different. When you type in Palomar into your flight plan and you say, I want to go direct, it's from your current GPS, your location on the planet Earth to Palomar. But when you go activate leg, like let's say, like Ethan said, you had a flight plan, local flight from here to Julian to Palomar, and you choose activate leg from Julian to Palomar, it doesn't take into account your current location. It just gets you, it tells you by looking at your CDI, I erased it. Oh, Julian's in that direction. If you want to get on that leg, you're going to have to fly in that direction. That's the difference. Okay. When you do approaches, you're going to have to activate legs. Right now, you're used to going direct in OBS mode for holding at a waypoint, right? That's very different than activating leg. Okay. So I wanted to review that. If you're not comfortable with that, we can do an example on the iPad with the G10650. Anybody want to do that? Are you good? Do I do that? Yeah, let's do it. Okay, great. This is oh no, this happens sometimes. There we go. Do not use for navigation. All right, databases are not current, but this is a simulator and we're in a classroom. How I doing so far?
We're not flying.
We're not flying.
Oh, man.
See, you tune out for 5 minutes and you're in a plane.
That was from the flight school.
All right, and then this, we looked at this in a photo of the actual plane there. I don't know if you're used to putting fuel on board and fuel flow here, but it's a good habit. I like to do it. If you do not have the option to click here and change it, do you know where you can change it on the G3X? Yeah, you go to engine instrument page, there's the main page, and then fuel calculator, and you can change it there. Okay. All right, so we're good there. We're gonna go flight plan, we're gonna go from Gillespie, we're gonna go Julian, and then we're gonna go Palomar, for example. So if you want to go direct Julian, how do we do it? We click Julian. Now I see some people going direct. You always want to click what you're going, right? Because if you have 20 things in here, you go direct, you're just gonna plane it. Or I'm sure there's some flow to it, but so you select Julian and then direct. And then activate. That will take you from your current location, GPS location, direct to Julian, as we see here. Now, if we want to, let's say we're getting headings and we want to intercept from Julian to Palomar, we're going to activate the leg from Julian to Palomar. Palomar is going to be the second waypoint on this. So we're going to choose Palomar. I know I used to do this all the time. I say, I never know which one to click. I would click this one or this one. Click your destination, the second, Palomar. Activate leg. Activate leg from Julian to Palomar as a confirmation. Okay. Now, this will say the active leg, which is purple, is from Julian to Palomar. All right, then we can get headings and we can go. Okay. Yeah, you know, on this thing you can actually fly, right?
Yeah, how do you set your location?
Oh, location, you gotta go demo. I think it's demo. And then waypoint Gillespie. You can change it there. Yeah, okay. And you can do like
So,
a little flight. Yeah, usually it plops you in like, I don't know,
okay, that's perfect.
somewhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Now look at our ground speed going 100, 130 knots.
Max it out.
Indicated airspeed's 400 knots. You can see that on the top.
Mhm.
Ground speed slowly increasing. Oh, you can go pretty fast actually.
I think it tops out about. I wouldn't know.
I wouldn't know. He's flying all the way from Oregon down to Gillespie. I gotta get down to Gillespie. I don't know how to change the starting point. So hopefully that helped. How are we doing on time? 9:41. We're doing great. Okay, WAS. What is the difference between GPS and WAS? So kind of big picture here. And then we will circle back to the TSO, right? Yeah. So we talked about GPS has a few different components. It has the space component with orbiting satellites. It has the ground component, and then it has the user segment, us, right? WAS, anybody want to give it a chance here? Give it a try.
Improves accuracy.
Austin? Okay. Yep. Okay, that's okay. So WAS is,
it stands for wide area augmentation.
that's good. That's good. Yep.
But I'm not super confident of that.
So wide area augmentation, what does the word augmentation usually mean?
Like,
Kind of like modification, usually it kind of makes it better, right? Unless you're thinking about maybe you play the piano. No, all right, never mind. I can't always get them all. This is a system that is based in the US. Okay, this is a US only based system. This specific one was. It takes the infrastructure of GPS that already exists. Why create a new one? And it improves that. How? It has geostationary satellites, meaning satellites that move around with the planet Earth, which is pretty freaking incredible. I don't know how people do that, but there's very smart humans on this planet. So it improves that component, the space component. It also has additional ground-based components, okay? So it improves, like it says here, accuracy, integrity, availability of GPS signals. We talked about different line of minima down to this. Aaron, you can't say enough. Okay, I'll say it again. If you have a WAS approved receiver, which goes back to the TSL, we'll circle back in a moment, then you can go down to lower minimums with a WAS receiver. Okay, so not only does, because do I really care if I'm en route, if I'm 2 nautical miles or 3 nautical miles? In reality, not really, right? How much protection do we have on a Victor Airway anyway? Yeah, on each side. That's a lot. So if I'm using a VOR and I don't know my exact distance because it gives me degrees, I think I'm gonna be safe, right? So I know when people think about WAS, they say, oh, it's more accurate, gives me better integrity. Like this isn't as important as is going down to lower minimums. Okay, and ILS, have we talked about ILS yet? Okay, and you talk about everything briefly.
Yeah.
We didn't spend a whole day on it.
You did?
No, we didn't.
All right, I don't know how you guys are running this class, but, yeah, so an ILS has 4 different components, one topic at a time. Point is that the ILS takes you down to 200 feet above the ground. We just saw a GPS approach that can do the same exact thing. Okay, and one of the reasons for that is because of a system like this that builds off an existing GPS infrastructure and adds a few more components with satellites and ground-based, requires another receiver. Notice we're using those same 3 topics there, right? Space component, ground component, and user segment. It takes all 3 of those and improves them so that we can now have not only lower minimums, better integrity when you go to flight planning, because we have a TSO Charlie 146 Charlie, right? When you do your flight planning with GPS only, you have to choose an approach at your primary that's either ground-based or GPS, and your alternate has to be the other one. So if you choose a ground-based for your primary, you have to choose a GPS for your alternate. For WAS, you can choose 2 GPS approaches. That's how much faith, probably the wrong word, that trust, that's a better word, that is had in this WAS system. Okay.
So
Would-
like with an ILS, there's a local other thing.
Yep.
Would there be like a WAS receiver there too?
Not at each airport.
Okay,
Yeah, they have them spaced out wide area,
okay,
so that there's coverage.
okay.
Yeah. Now, I'm happy you brought that up because just like any system, there are limitations, right? And a limitation with the WAS is, and not really like in this area as much, but like I think Alaska has them a lot. For some reason, Alaska has all the crap we don't want, right? Except for the really good fishing probably, I don't know. And mountain flying, you know what, they have some. Yeah. But there are NOTAMs that state this particular area is known for WAS outages. Yeah, and you'll see that when you study for looking at a place and there's a symbol for it. Okay, it's a W and a block or something, but yeah, so there are limitations to it. Okay, it is great, but just remember, just like anything, there's limitation. Right? What are some limitations with GPS without WAS? Just GPS. TSO Charlie 129 196. What are some limitations?
Accuracy.
Okay. Yeah.
Reliability.
Reliability. Yeah. Talk to me more about that.
It's not held to as high a standard. They have more room for deviation.
I would, for reliability, I would think about satellite coverage.
So like, okay,
Yeah,
like loss of signal, total loss of signal.
that's it. Yeah.
Okay.
That's called loss of integrity, right?
Okay.
Depending on the receiver that you have, you may have the capability of, you know about RAIN, right? Receiver autonomous integrity monitoring, integrity. If you have a loss of integrity, you as a pilot in command will be notified, hey, you have an LOI, it's usually a yellow little rectangle. You have a loss of integrity. They can't rely on GPS anymore, can you? That's why the GPS, you also need to have ground base as a backup. Okay, they say that very clearly there. All right, so that is a limitation, right? Depending on the type of receiver you have, you may have not only the capability for fault detection, just a loss of integrity, you might have fault detection and exclusion. Have you seen that? FDE? Fault detection and exclusion. All right. So let's say you need 5 satellites. All right. And here you are, you're flying like, all right, I got all 5 satellites. This is good. Then now there's an issue with this satellite. All right. It's had a bad day. It needs a break. All right. So now this satellite goes away, but here's this other satellite orbiting. And not only does it fault detect, now you're going to have a loss of integrity in this receiver right here, right? Oh, you don't have all the satellites that you need. But this one comes in and says, I got you, bro, I got you. Comes in, boom. Now you have fault detection and exclusion. Okay, so that's a limitation with the system and also a limitation with the user segment that you have, if you have that capability. Okay, does that make sense? We good? Okay, I haven't lost it yet. Sometimes I tend to blabber. Briefly.
Repeat that last 15 minutes.
Right. I lost you at the first two, and I don't know what you said. All of this to talk about the TSOs. So general requirements. Notice the same format for the WASP as there is with the GPS. Okay, in terms of the layout and the aim. So general requirements. Here's the TSOs. Again, it's the same advisory circular that must be installed in accordance with. Okay. GPS WASP equipment is inherently capable of supporting oceanic remote operations if the operator obtains a fault detection and exclusion prediction program. So like I said, depending on the type of user segment that you have, they're going to require more things. Here's the NOTAMs that I mentioned, right? There's different NOTAMs that may exist. And just part of our pre-flight operation, part of our NW craft, we got to look for these NOTAMs and plan for that. NOTAMs, I know we don't spend too much time on NOTAMs with PPL because you're visual. You know, if something bad happens, you can, you know, you plan for enough fuel, you can go to another airport. It's usually not a huge deal if you plan it properly. But for instrument, the stakes are a little bit higher, right? Assuming that you're flying in IMC. So there are so many NOTAMs out there for different line of minima. Wow, he had to bring it up again, didn't he? Because depending on the weather, right? Let's say the METAR shows that you have a ceiling of 3,000 feet. And then the TAF is showing that after you finish your flight, that the ceilings are going to be maybe at 500 feet. And the approach, the line of minima of approaches might take you down somewhere from 1,000 to 200 feet. Well, now you have some real aeronautic decision making to make, don't you? Because you're either going to be above it or you're going to be below it. What airports can you divert to if you have to in the area? And it's all the weather and the same in that valley. And now if you can't do one approach, you can't do 10 of them, right? Hopefully that makes sense. So if there's a change to a line of minima, like let's say there's a crane somewhere or what have you, I got to plan for that. That's too long of a spiel for that topic. That's fine. Any questions on that? I think I'm done with that topic. It's not bad. 45 minutes.
Makes sense. Yeah.
All right. Anything else on GPS before we move on to the Garmin product? Okay. Can we just recap the last 45 minutes? Please. What the heck did we talk about?
Yeah, sensitivity.
Okay, GPS CDI sensitivity. Yeah, okay, that's correct. That's important. When you're greater than 30 nautical miles from your departure or arrival airport, the enunciation that you'll see on our HSI is going to be en route, and our CDI sensitivity with a full scale deflection is going to be 2 nautical miles. Less than 30 nautical miles, the enunciation on our HSI is going to be terminal. That means that we'll have a CDI sensitivity of 1 nautical mile. And as we continue getting closer to the airport, when we're within 2 nautical miles of the final approach fix, we'll have some kind of approach enunciation with a CDI sensitivity of 0.3 nautical miles. All right, cool. Our GTN 650 is a WASP IFR certified receiver or user segment that is certified by the FAA with the technical standing order Charlie 146 Charlie TSO Charlie 146 Charlie, and is installed in accordance with the Advisory Circular 2138. That means that we can follow the AIM 1118 because it is WASP certified. Okay. And with that, then you can go into a little more details about, what that means and what kind of additional privilege, it basically gives you additional privileges if you think about it, compared to like a GPS or no GPS. Okay. Like when I fly down to Mexico with mission flight, we have a Garmin 430 with expired navigation databases. It is WAS certified, but it's via, I'm not doing an approach in that, it's just VFR. And the airports, it doesn't have Mexico stuff in there. So it's true pilotage, flying 300 nautical miles down south along the coast. Okay. But it's pretty easy. You just follow the coast. It's not that big, right? There's no autopilot. It's true hand flying. So yeah, the point of that is appreciate what you have here with these planes. They're freaking nice. Okay. But also I encourage all of you to fly different planes.
What plane do you fly?
Right now it's a Cherokee 6, which is a high performance single engine, with constant speed. I can show you a photo here for a moment, and then we can take a break. I'm flying the Cessna 401 in about a week and a half. That's a twin. Yeah, this is the GPS that we have here. It works really well though.
Even that's pretty nice now.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fun little plane. Here's our engine instruments. It's so basic. Yeah, I don't trust these. So, but you can see the fuel flow
You gotta tap on them first.
up here.
Rock your wings a little bit.
Yeah,
it rings a little bit.
I noticed that my pinky gives me the best luck for a reading. Yeah, no, it's fun. Yeah,
Realize what you have here, you can pull something else.
no, you don't. You really don't. This plane is it's a beast. It's a 6-seater. I mean, it's amazing. This thing can carry almost 1,000 pounds of cargo with full tanks.
Wow.
So as long as you position it properly, so you're within the CG, this thing is. It doesn't look like much from the outside, like it needs a paint job and stuff, but this thing can book it.
What's the VA?
The VA is 120. Depending on the weight, because VA changes, so you gotta calculate it. But yeah, it's 120. So really, when you're at cruise, your true airspeed's like around 140, approximately. Yeah, which is nice, depending on the day, of course. All right. We'll reconvene at 10:05. Deal? When we come back, we will discuss the Garmin G3X. The Garmin G3X. Unless you want to talk about the Jeppesen G3X.
The Jetson, but
The Jeppesen G3X.
I
Oh, okay. What? What is it?
Who? Your show's back on. Oh, no, that's close. No, that's close. Those look cool. Yeah.
One point, you did so much check there. Like, yes, like, hold that. Means like it. Hold that by point, you mean said exactly, the published one is like 256 millimeters. That turns over that. It's also the whole, used to love the whole. That whole set on autopilot, think for last week. But automatically you do change up that tree. That's awesome. Yeah, because I did ride today with remote neuroscience on your second holes. Yeah. It's annoying. But yeah.
So one of my buddies got the whole disc old 757, 767 Napa. And I was talking to him about like the string training, full entry stuff. He said he flew with a captain one time that elected to hand fly hold in weather and was hand flying a hold while doing the wind correction calculations and stuff. Like my buddy offered to load the hold into the FMS. And the captain said, no, the hand flight keeps me proficient or whatever. And I said he was hand flying, sure, dude. Hand flying this complex intersection hole or something, while doing the direction calculation and timing himself, doing it all.
Like, sure.
In a jet.
Yeah. I mean, if you really want to,
Yeah.
sure. Keeps from the rain.
We're doing stand-up yoga or something? Who's leading? I'll join you. Alright, so first start with one of these. I don't know, I know you call this the surfer. What do you call this?
No idea.
Alright, I would
Oh, you
like
got it going down? I got it going down.
the longer cable.
There you go. You are cool.
Oh, that's the camera.
There, and I was just telling Austin that we had some thunderstorms back home and a modest clouds. My girlfriend got a picture.
Oh, let me see. There, show us. Wow. That's really pretty. It looks like it's Photoshop. That is wild. You look like it's actually hard to tell a lot there. That's cool.
Yeah, this was pretty cool.
And you find that area, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There's not thunderstorms, you have to find a moment clouds and get it on top.
Ah, good. There's a hole. My instructor used to say that all the time. He's like, there's a hole right there. I'm like, no, there's not. He's like, no, look a little closer. There's a hole right there.
The trick was to get on top of the cloud and stay below the Charlie show.
Ah.
You got 50 feet to work.
Yeah.
Oh, Okay, so here we go. Everyone plugged in, or do you need 2 minutes before you? You're not listening for 2 minutes, like, what's he doing? Yeah, I got some coffee. What's the best way to do this? I guess this is the only way.
Both the worst.
Both the way, yeah. All right, so what is the Garmin G3X?
KSEE and then
Okay. Yeah, that's what we call it. Is every Sling 2 built the same? No, they're not. Yeah, the Sling 2 is a light sport aircraft, as you know, and they're custom built. You can purchase the Sling 2, this light sport aircraft, and you can have 2 screens if you want, not one. You can have a G3X, you can have a separate comm system if you want there as well. You can modify and put it wherever you'd like. Okay, so the G3X technically is really kind of a general term of the layout that you selected. But for the training purposes in this environment, we call the G3X just that one screen. When in reality, it's actually another term, but that's what we use it. We just call it the G3X. So we're going to start out today by talking about the different components for this entire G3X suite, the layout of it. And then we will talk about how they all kind of come together. Okay. So this is the G3X touch system may consist of the following line replacement units. That's what I mean by custom built. Okay, you can have this screen, which is what we have, right? The GDU 460, which we call the G3X. Okay. This one screen could be the PFD. Another screen could be the MFD, which is similar to what we see in the simulator, right? We have one screen for each of those. You can have PFD, MFD, or split screen, which is exactly what we have in landscape orientation. Let's do it like this. You can also have this screen right here, the smaller, the 7-inch portrait orientation. Okay, these are the different line replacement units that we're talking about. Okay. So those are the screens. This right here, the GSU 25 Delta. This is the subsystem for the G3X Touch that also communicates with the G5 for air data computer and the AHARD system. Okay, this is what processes that. Note that the G5 has its own separate air data computer and AHARD system. Okay, which you're all familiar with. All right, and we're going to see later on how those two kind of relate to each other and how they really are separate ADC and AHARs. Okay, but for the G3X, this is what that unit is called, the GSU 25D. Okay, and as we know, the ADC processes data for the pedostatic system and gives us which flight instruments? VSI, altimeter, not attitude, airspeed. Yeah, remember, because that and outside air temperature. AHARs, what does AHARS stand for? Attitude and heading reference system. So the AHARS gives us which flight instruments? Turn coordinator. Attitude. HSI. What did you say, Justin? HSI, okay. Rate of turn. Oh, right. The rate of turn is also important there as well. Okay. When I'm sure you already went over PAVE and the grab cars, right? What is different with PAVE for the instrument rating versus the private? Well, it's all the same. You just add a few more, right? For pilot, for aircraft, you're gonna add grab card, right? For IFR equipment, and rate of turn is on there. And the attitude and heading reference system provides that information to us, which is processed through the GSU 25 Delta. Okay. If we have any errors in this, how are we going to know that as the pilot in command? How are we going to know that there's an error with one of these computers? You can see the red X. Okay, very different than a pitot-static blockage. This is what the component looks like. Okay. What are these 3 ports for? They're just hoses. Okay, I was looking at a helicopter the other day that had pretty basic gauges. It just had the traditional pitot-static system. They were just hoses, people. From the pitot tube to whatever process is that, or yeah, from the pitot tube to the airspeed indicator, actually. The airspeed indicator had a hose running to the static port. That's it. It's so simple. So what are these 3 ports for? For the ADC?
Ground pressure, static pressure.
RAM, static, and
Dynamic. No,
well, dynamic is the subtraction of the 2, right?
yeah,
Alternate static, maybe?
Well, we don't have one of those. What are these 3 sensors? Let's see if
should
my,
be.
my presentation over here is good.
Outside air temperature.
Good, outside air temperature.
Outside air temperature would be a hose.
No, it's not a hose. I'm just yeah, it wouldn't be a hose. You're right. It would not be a hose. Okay, those are the 3 sensors that you get. And we'll see that later on in the diagram. Again, we're going through each of these components and then we'll put it all together on one piece of paper. Okay. The magnetometer. What is the magnetometer? The magnetometer measures the local magnetic field. Okay. After it measures the local magnetic field, it sends this information to the AHAR system, which is this, or no, which is GSU 25 delta. For those flight instruments, determines the aircraft magnetic heading. The temperature probe provides raw air temperature data. We know where this is located, right? Where is this located?
The pressure duct on the left side.
Yeah, the cabin vent. Yeah, on the left side, exactly. Yep, good. This is our angle of attack probe, very different than a pitot tube, right? Because it not only provides us the dynamic air pressure, but also the angle of attack, and it's paired with the GSU 25, of course, okay, which gives information, the ram pressure to our ADC. The autopilot servo, used for automatic control of pitch, roll, yaw, and trim, which we know that we have, depending on, again, the custom built that you have for our aircraft here, for the trainer aircraft, we have pitch and roll. Okay, yaw and trim are typically not included in the autopilot servo. What is a servo? Servo is just a
Electric motor that actually.
electric motor that actually, yeah. Good, that's a better definition that I could come up with. Nice job, thank you. See, we can work together on this presentation. Yeah, everybody, this is Justin over here. The engine and airframe unit receives and processes signals from the engine and airframe sensors, okay? GAD 27, engine start, 14 volt airframes only. What kind of airframe do we have? 14 volt or 28 volt? 14, yeah, okay. Our battery may be 12 volt, but we're typically a little bit higher for that, given that the demand that we have on the battery, or you want to try and keep it in equilibrium as much as you can, okay? Transmits, this is for the panel mount IFR GPS navigator right here. We have different types of autopilot products. And so this is one of them, the GMC 507. We have VHF communications radio, which we do only have one. This is another option if you wanted to have more than one, but we do not have this option. I know. We also don't have this option either to plug in like that. ADS-B receiver, we do have that. We have the G3X touch system can be configured as follows. There's all kinds of configuration, which we already talked about. All right, some other options here as well. We have, this is the option that we have, right? This right here is how it all kind of comes together, okay? So we have our GSU 25, which we know is our ADC AHARS. And the information that is fed to this is for our flight instruments. We have our static and pitot coming this way. And then we have our outside air temperature. And this same data is also sent to our G5, which truly is its own standby instrument because it has its own separate processors there. Okay. This is our magnetometer, which feeds the information to both of these. And yeah, that's pretty much it. All right. So an advantage of this is we do have an electronic information system. A downside of this is we are overly reliant on electricity, right? If we lose electricity, then we might be having a bad day if hopefully we're in VFR, right? Aaron, we're always in VFR. We're a VFR only aircraft, of course.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, always. Yeah. So I don't know. Hopefully that helped. Any question on that? Yeah. I think you may have seen me do that presentation with sliding before. I don't know. Maybe. All right, 10:22. We got 30 minutes.
The next page where it talks about the G3X only being certified for VFR flight.
Oh. See, that's why we're working this together. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Juliet Papa back here. Say hello. Hi. Well, we can do the quiz. Does anybody have any written test questions you want to do? No? No. Yeah. I really enjoy written test questions. Are you sure? Well, he said, I already purchased it. You probably don't even have it anymore, do you?
Oh no,
Yeah.
no, or let's get the new one.
Yeah. It's not ridiculous though.
Yeah, come on.
I know. Like I'd love to be able to log in and do questions up here,
Yeah.
but all right. Is there anything else you want to review before we do the quiz? Because the quiz kind of takes up class time. You know, you could do it on your own, but we can do it during class if you want. That's all that I had prepared for today's class. Do you all know the acronyms that you have to know? Do you know? Do you know?
Don't know what I don't know.
You don't know what you don't know. Like magnetic compass errors, you all know DV mono, of course. Grab card, you do know grab card there, right? Do you know grab card?
Yeah, it's just not drilled in my head like 8-minute plans. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So it needs a little more time.
Yeah, same here. If you want to write it out.
Yeah,
Let's do it.
Let's take 10 minutes. Have you went over pave
Yeah.
and seen the similarities
Yeah.
with what you're expected to know?
Is that a class I wasn't there for?
Maybe. I don't know.
Did you do it in this class? Yeah, because this is,
Lizzie did do a day where she wrote it all up.
there was?
Yeah.
Apparently, that was one of the classes I
Maybe
missed.
you missed it, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember that, Justin? Yeah, that might have been.
Yeah, this session.
Hey, like,
Yeah.
oh, what, can I eat it? Did he do? Oh, Did he write it
Well,
like-
Lizzie wrote it out and like, can I eat the
I think so.
part of it?
What? Yeah, yeah, we did.
See, that was the 5 minutes that Justin wasn't paying attention. Then everybody woke up, he said, I don't know what's going on, I'm gonna go back to sleep. I was kidding. Well, do you have the notes on that? You can share with them? Because I'll just briefly go through this. So what's the purpose of PAVE? It's a risk management checklist, looks at a few different areas for us to determine if it's a go or no go for today's flight, right? Starting with the pilot. Some people just write pilot, but it's really pilot in command, right? Because if you're taking another pilot, but they're not acting as a crew member, you don't need to make sure they have all their documents and stuff, right? There just happen to be a pilot sitting in the plane. Okay, so anyway, I know semantics. That gives me acute fatigue. Pilot in command, so you're gonna go through the documents that you need. Okay, you're gonna go through, you know, all this stuff. What's different for instrument than is currency, right? Good, yeah. So you still want to add your VFR, don't forget that, okay? Yeah, so you're still gonna have your biennial flight review, 24 calendar months. Kidding, it's important. I gotta stop doing that. I just think it's funny in my head, but maybe it's not. People might be taking offense to it. Maybe that's why Olivia is on Zoom. Was it something I said, Olivia? Passenger, and then, yeah, your six hits. Are you comfortable with what 6 calendar months means? Like, if I were to tell you, you did 3 approaches in November and 2 approaches in July and 1 approach last month. Are you current? Would you know how to work through that?
Like so, yeah.
Okay, so let's see. So I think I said,
November.
let's say 2 in November, 1 in July, March. You did, let's say 3. Are you current? And if not, how many more do you have to do? One.
Well, what's the date?
Yeah, well, it's April, it's today's date, April 11th.
That's by the end of April.
Good. And then let's say you don't do that. Or let's say you do that. Let's say April. Good job, everybody. You won. How many do you have to do in May? Yeah, May. One. 2 more. Good. Yeah, exactly. Yep. All right, great job. Happy to see that. You're comfortable with a safety pilot? What is safety pilot? How a qualified safety pilot exists. I didn't phrase that right.
I gotta do that.
Yeah, at least a private pilot
Doing them in VFR conditions.
in the same category and class, right? They do have to have a current medical.
So-
And VFR conditions. Yeah,
If
it's being a
it's
safety
an
pilot.
IMC, they have to be an instrument pilot.
If it's an IMC, then they have to be at least an instrument rated pilot that is current and has your medical in the same category and class. Yeah. Okay.
So can we talk about, so Izzy was saying that we could do 6 hits after 6 months with a safety pilot to up to 12 months.
Correct. Yeah.
But she couldn't find that regulation anywhere. So is that in the AIM somewhere, or is it in FARS that we can look up?
It is in the regulation somewhere. Yeah, I don't know on the top of my head, but you must have missed that class.
I remember her spending a lot of time and not able to actually find it.
Yeah, she found it, I thought.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
because Jessica was asking.
yeah. I thought she found it in this one. It was just like really worded, and so she went over it.
In a way, which wasn't very clear.
It is poorly worded.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember studying this topic and saying, everybody, you're all doing this wrong. This is not what it says. Yeah. Yeah, so for the first 6 months, yeah, sometimes you see it kind of drawn like this. And the reason why it's worded that way is if you actually need to do an approach, or you never need to do an approach, but if you're doing an approach in actual instrument, If you're within here, you can do it without a safety pilot, right? But after that, you need a safety pilot. That's kind of, does that make sense, right? Yeah. Okay. Does that answer your question?
I mean, the concept was clear,
Yeah.
I just didn't think we had cited the actual regulation that said that.
I don't know where it is on the top of my head. Do you happen to have it?
I'll have to look for it.
And like,
I think that it would probably be. It'd have to be under currency 60, it definitely 61.
61, 57,
61,
57, I review. Some flight experience.
that sounds 61 to 57. Yeah, probably Charlie.
Um. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, within 6 months preceding one, flight testing actually performed and log at least the following past an iteration airplane, blah, blah, blah. Plus 6 instrument pressures. Fully procedures, tasks, no second tracking. Then
Recency, flight experience, piloting command.
I'm sure it's a safety pilot anywhere.
Yeah, you're right.
Because I see the part about 12 calendar months after you need the instrument proficiency check,
Mhm.
examiner, or DLI.
Yeah, I have to get back on this so we don't take up time in class. Yeah, it kind of goes down to. Yeah, because I remember reading this saying, oh, after 6 months, you need to do an IPC.
yeah, that's the way it sounds.
Yeah, I mean, that is the way it sounds. It's true.
Well, it refers back to the original, it says you have 6 months to do these certain things. And then the next bit is refers to that 6 months, you have 6 months to do that. So which adds up to 12 calendar months.
Yeah, and paragraph E goes into like a lot of weird things. Well, not weird, just if you're 119, there's exceptions, 125, 121 exceptions. Turbine powered airplane. Maybe it was an advisory circular. There is something that says it, and I don't remember where it is on the top of my head. See if I can find it here. I don't usually do this, but
Out here.
I know,
How low have you stooped, Darren?
I know. Pilot Institute usually has good stuff. Where does it say this though? Well, that can be your weekend project, and you can. I think Easy's back on Monday, right?
I just Thursday.
Oh,
Yeah.
I think Kellen's teaching next.
Great. Well, if anyone finds it, let me know. Because they don't have the answer. I remember going down this rabbit hole though. But it's been a minute since I've done this rabbit hole.
And then for logging PIC as a safety pilot, is that when the other person is under?
Yeah, so this is, let's say person A.
Oh, wait, it's worded so that during the initial 6 months, you could get all that stuff done, but once you're one day past that 6 months, the regulations say you can. It doesn't say that you can have a safety pilot, it doesn't say that you can't. So another 6 months passes, it says you have to do an IPC. But between those 6 months, it doesn't say that you can't have a
Oh,
safety
okay.
pilot.
Oh,
So within.
yeah.
It's so stupid.
Just know this and you're good, okay? Yeah. So let's say your total flight time was 2 hours, okay? So regardless, you can both log total time, right? As long as you're sitting up there, that's fine. Let's say person one is VFR. So they're gonna log all of it as PIC, right? Because they're VFR. The second person is gonna be going under the hood. Now, the person going under the hood, really, I mean, for takeoff and landing, they're not really gonna be doing much, right? For the actual takeoff and landing, and during the taxi, right? You gotta have your eyes open both, right? You're not gonna wear the hood under the, while you're taxiing. So don't try and do that. It's not, you don't wanna have that discussion with. There was a DPE out of Torrance who sent a very long detailed email about the check rides in the last year that he's had with Sling. And that was one of the comments and feedback he said. He said the flight was 2 hours and they're really logging 1.8. He said most students, by the time they leave the ramp and taxi to the run-up area, it takes them 0.2 because they're doing the whole checklist, which is good. They're doing the checklist, they're contacting, that's 12 minutes. So just be careful with that when you're logging that, okay? So really, by the time you, typically for an instrument flight, by the time you finish your checklist, you pick up your craft clearance, you type it into the GPS, and you brief it. That sometimes can take a half hour by the time you tax and everything. So it's really 0.5. Then you got to take off. That takes 0.1. Then a landing, 0.1. Then maybe a taxi back. So really, you're looking at probably maybe like 0.6 or something like that. Maybe 0.7, let's say 0.7. So you can log 0.7. Now, this is where doing a longer flight is really going to help, because if this was maybe a 4-hour flight, it's probably going to be the same amount of time under the hood, right? So you'll do 4 hours, You both log this, and then VFR will be 4, IFR, oh, sorry, I did this wrong, subtract 0.7. So this would be 3.3 IFR. Okay, you're still getting that total time. But this is what you log here, okay? So if it's still attractive, I mean, you're still gonna save some money from going with an instructor. You probably learn more with an instructor depending on who you're flying with. But if you're doing this, you may want to just alternate. All right, I'll be VFR PIC today. Next flight, you can be switch it.
So he
To answer your question.
gets 4 hours PIC and then I gets 3.3.
So this is total time.
I mean, oh,
Yeah, you can both log the 4 because you're still in the plane, right? But for PIC, this person, right there, do this right? 4 hours for the entire flight.
Yeah, so that person gets 4 hours PIC, that person gets 3.3 hours PIC.
PIC, yeah.
oh,
Yeah, this is all PIC. Yeah. Can this person log SIC?
No.
No. When I was doing this, I logged SIC. My instructor laughed at me because I didn't know. But when can you log SIC?
When the aircraft requires 2 buttons.
Exactly. When the aircraft requires it. When, like being the manufacturer, when the operation requires it. Like if you're flying for a nonprofit or something and they require an SIC, like mission flight requires that for flights when we're carrying passengers and people, which makes sense, right? And the insurance requires it. And also you can log it when you're performing SIC duties as well. Yeah, so that's again, that's when it's required. Like you may not be checked out as an SIC, but I've done that with mission flight before, where I didn't have my multi. But I was sitting up front and just kind of helping with the comms and just like checklists, just like little things, just to kind of help reduce the burden for the PIC. Okay, so don't log our SIC yet. And also for a safety pod, make sure that you also write down in your comments, you can add a person to that flight, right? So you need to have their, like really you should have their full name and their license number, their certificate number on there as well. Okay. Any more questions on that?
Do you mind writing down 6 hits? Because I
Yeah.
wrote really poorly in my notes.
Or Jesse could write it out for you.
Oh, that's why you're saying it.
Plus, again, you have to do presentation.
I don't recall.
I was here early, you know, the whole thing, I did your part.
Yeah, so people have a few different ways of kind of laying it out. So you have to do, and people write 6 approaches. I like to write 6 instrument approaches because you can do a visual approach, but you can't really log that, right? Because you have to be established on a final approach segment. So it's not going to be the same. So 6 instrument approaches. And the 6 preceding calendar months. Holding procedures. Probably write just the full thing if it's your first time. Interception tracking, use of navigation systems, and then if needed, the safety pilot that we just talked
I
about.
thought it was just one build thing.
Yeah, it's just one of them. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really easy to lose your, again, this is currency, okay? So the very bare minimum legal, right? Very different from proficiency. Because I can imagine that if you don't do approaches, you can very easily lose that skill. Yeah, I've done 2 IPCs before, with students, well, pilots. And yeah, even after a year of not doing it, like, oh, wow, I used to know this stuff really well. And it's like and I get it, it's just like anything. Yeah. So, yeah, this is a good time to kind of like write good notes. That's why I'm gonna keep this binder forever, as long as I'm a pilot. Because I have notes in here that really do help me lay out information just on a few sheets. So I can kind of like refresh and study. Because now I'm working on my MEI and I have like fairly good notes. They're not great, but fairly good notes to kind of help me study for that and refresh for that. So I encourage the same for you to do that. Okay, any question on that? You good? You good? Okay. Other acronyms, yeah.
You can do all that on the Redbird, right?
Once you have your instrument rating, yes, you can.
So yeah, why don't people just own more Redbirds than just when they have an instrument just to get over it for cheap?
Just like anything, it costs money. Yeah, because it is a BATD. Yeah. Yeah, you'll see me on there. I jump on there and do some approaches. It's very useful. Yeah, but again, after you have your rating, you can do it and you can log it. Yeah. What else here? How are we doing on time? 10 minutes. Excellent. Always plenty of time. Just kidding. Just never enough time.
Yeah, that's a $10,000 smoother.
10,000?
This is the small one.
Wow.
$10,000 smoother. With one single screen.
Apparently Ethan's just made of money over here, huh?
I've seen more Redbirds as a sim than anything else. I didn't know they were that expensive.
Well, it takes a lot of money to run a flight school. All right, currency, then you have personal minimums. So if anyone's heard me give this spiel about personal minimums. You can create your own document. I was looking at a gentleman's binder at a commercial truck ride in the last 60 days. He was one of the best binders I've ever seen, by the way. Very, very excellent binder. And he created his own personal minimums. He had just kind of on a piece of paper, and he had his own categories of what he feels like are his personal minimums. But AOPA has its own document. You've all heard me. Yeah, I don't think Justin's heard me giving that spiel yet, have you? Yeah, maybe. I might not have been listening. Yeah, but
Somebody would have
Michael?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can use this document if you want. Kind of goes through like a contract with yourself.
Did they the IFR one?
Yeah, the IFR one. Yeah. So you may have seen the VFR one.
Yeah.
But it's good because as you progress through this training here, you're gonna have minimums not only for ceiling or visibility or crosswind, all this stuff, but now you're in route minimums, right? Look at the different phases of flight. What if you're doing a precision or non-precision approach? What are your minimums for that going to be? Okay, so I really like it. And again, it's a contract with yourself. Have your instructor look at it. So aircraft.
And also, I feel like big dynamic, you know, it's gonna change over time.
Yeah, like right now, you may want to just stay VFR until you actually do it. And that's okay. That's okay to do that. Yeah. You do one approach and actually be like, all right, I'm fine. But the light, yeah, when the light comes through, it can definitely disorient you. Okay. So aircraft, eight tomato flames, flaps, arrow AAV8s, and then you have grab card. IFR. Anybody want to write graph card up here?
Austin does.
I was gonna say you did.
Oh, okay. Yeah, step on up. Everyone's volunteering off.
You could do that, we have to get one for a while.
Yeah. Here, let's throw it out.
This is like day 2 of IFR class, this is well deserved.
Say again?
This is only day 2 of IFR class, this is well deserved.
Oh, is it? Yeah, this is my first time filling in the instrument this round, right? Did I fill in once before?
No.
Oh,
Not for this class at least.
yeah, because you were at the private. That's like, because I remember you being there. Yeah, you were at the private. But you're beyond that. Yeah.
I'm not now.
I'm a pilot now. Heck yeah. Yeah, that's okay.
So my family and I always quote this line from the movie Independence Day.
Oh, I love Independence. That's a good movie.
So the crop duster is like volunteering to go fly the 14.
Yeah.
I'm pilot.
I'm pilot.
I'm pilot. He says it just like that.
Yeah.
Too. The ending was wild.
Yeah.
You ever watch Mars Attacks?
No,
That's like along the same era-ish. It's a little bit
I
older, but
probably have it, so it's like more animated, right?
oh well, the aliens are
Yeah,
animated.
yeah,
Yeah, it's like the animation's not that great. It's
I've
pretty
seen
old.
it.
Yeah, it's really silly.
Yeah, there's so little like language, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
You can help me out?
You already know more than I do for this one.
Don't know.
Or not.
That.
Clock.
Yeah.
Pretty much the same thing. Yeah, you all can help them out.
Here.
You got that one.
Is another airspeed?
No.
Altimeter.
Did you say?
I said altimeter.
What about the altimeter?
Oh, sensitive.
Yeah, good. Yeah, sensitive altimeter.
Oh. Is that, I don't think I've ever seen that.
Yeah, this is when we were looking at approaches, I said this is true altitude as long as we actually set the altimeter to low barometric setting. So that's why that is required. Now for VFR, altimeter is still there, right? But it doesn't have to be sensitive. Your VFR.
Yeah, it's not that.
Yeah.
It's chill.
It's chill. You know, you hit Bravo by accident, like,
Sorry.
sorry, I don't have a sensitive altimeter.
Great burn.
Good. 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 Yeah, just think about what do I need for IFR to keep myself safe? You know, we got to keep a standard rate, right? Good.
Some sort of heading.
Yeah, directional gyro. Yeah, directional gyro. Now, what's the difference between a directional gyro and a magnetic direction indicator? Because one of them is for VFR. This one's for IFR. How is that different? Everybody want to take a what are some examples of a magnetic direction indicator? Okay, good job. Thank you.
Compass.
Whiskey compass.
Yeah, okay, a compass.
Right.
Yeah, a compass could
Directional
work.
drive would be like a heading indicator, right?
Exactly.
Set it up.
Yeah. So if you had an aircraft, good job. Yeah, I don't know if you clapped here or not. Yeah, if you have an aircraft with only a compass and you don't have a directional gyro, I mean, you could fly for VFR. But for IFR, you need some kind of heading. Like ATC gives you a heading, you gotta be able to fly it. And you're not gonna use the compass for that, right? Because they might give you climbs or descents, and we all know about the compass errors. Okay. Let's tighten this up a little bit. So you need a generator, alternator, you need radio. You need two-way radio communication. And navigation equipment suitable for the route to be flown. Okay, so let's expand on what Austin started already. So radio, nav, suitable for route of flight. What? How could you possibly not have a navigation suitable for the route of flight? What are you talking about?
Loss and not having loss.
Okay, yeah, if you plan on doing an approach that requires loss, you're gonna want to have it. Yeah.
Having ad radio, the track VFRs.
Okay, yeah, being able, if you're gonna file for Victor Airways, you better have either a VOR or GPS or some way to do that, right? What if you're gonna file this route right here? What kind of route is that? That's not a tech route. Nope. It does start with a T. I'll just keep pointing until all the faces.
GPS.
It's a GPS route. Yeah, it's a T route. So if you file for a T route, and all you have is a VOR, let's say you switch planes last minute, well, you don't have the navigation suitable for the back flight, right? If you file for a Victor Airway and you do not have GPS, and ATC gives you a reroute on a T route, can you take it? No. I mean, it seems obvious, but they want to put it in here just so it's very clear that, hey, you can't take it. No, you're not gonna try and guess. Sometimes people are bashful to talk to ATC and they might take it. I don't know, they might take it and say, well, I guess we're gonna
Yes.
put Kumba into OBS mode and we're gonna go 283. Like, think about how dangerous. I don't know. Or we're gonna go in Kumba 283 for 16 miles, and then we're gonna create a user waypoint, and then we're gonna go, for the record, do not do that. Aaron said we can do that. I used to say in the private class to everybody, can you sign this document saying that you agree that I was just kidding? You remember that? I think I did that in your class, yeah.
Disclaimer.
A disclaimer, yeah, right.
Material.
So hopefully that makes sense. Attitude indicator. Yeah, you don't need an attitude indicator for VFR flight. Why?
See outside.
Look outside, people. Exactly. Okay. Ball, turn coordinator. Yep. Clock. Hours, minutes, and seconds. Good. Yeah, pressure sensitive altimeter. Okay. Rate of turn. Yep. And then directional gyro. Nice job.
Good job.
Another round of applause.
Just in the result, just after me. That's true.
All right. Well, that concludes the Zoom session for the day. Thank you all for having me this week. See you later, Olivia.
Thank you, Aaron.
Bye.